Okay then, well, at long last we're back on this Valiant after letting it sit, going on vacation and some other stuff I've been doing in the interim. But what I'm doing now is I've got to pull this steering column out. This is a manual transmission steering column, and obviously that will not work with an automatic. So I have an automatic column that will work in this car, but I believe I'm going to have to do some combination of the pieces between the two columns and a little bit of modification to the other column, the new one, to get it on here and work. But I was talking to my buddy up there today, and I had thought that I was stuck on that I was not going to be able to use that column that I've got because it's a power steering column. He says that's not the case. He said, well, they told me how to modify it, so we're going to do that. So we've got to pull this one and get it out of here. So first thing I did was I took a punch, and there's a roll pin right here on this steering shaft coupler. See that little space right there? Looks like a little hole there. The marks beside it. That's where this lives, and this was in here, and it was, one end of it was out about this far. You can see it's got a little bit of rust and corrosion on it, and then the other was in there, ever how far that was. And so I just got on the end that was recessed down in there and just soaked it with some PB and tapped it on out with a punch. So the next thing I'm going to have to do is I'll need to come in here, and I've got to far for the lighting's terrible here, but I've got a trim right here, a piece of trim that has to be removed. It's got 4 Phillips screws on it, and then we're going to go ahead and get the wiring undone. And then we've got 3 or 4 bolts down at the floor down there that have to come out also, and I hope that those will come out. I've soaked those already with PB, and I hope they'll come out without too much problem, but we'll find out. So I'll just update you along the way with this thing and see how it goes with it. And alrighty, so let's get busy. Okay, well, I forgot to show you something pretty pertinent, and so I'm further along than where I'm going to place this clip in at. But out here, once you get that roll pin driven out, you're going to have to get that coupler separated from the input shaft of the steering box there. And I've already worked on this a little bit and got it moved up some. I think I've got to get it eased up a little bit more, but what I did was, this thing is on there, so I used my what they call pickle fork ball joint separator, tie rod end separator, and just stuck this thing down in here and whacked on it with my big heavy hammer, and it finally started moving up that way. So I don't know that this column slides like the power steering columns do. I know that they do, and it's easier to put this thing back together, but in the interim I'm just going to leave it right there for now. But I'm working on the wiring, and I don't really want that thing to come falling down right now anyway, so I'll just leave that for a few minutes and then come out here. When I'm ready to pull the column out, I will go ahead and knock that thing completely off there. And once again, it's splined, and it just slides up like that. Okay, got the little shield out over here, the little garnish panel. Just took those out and stuck it over here with the screws down in it. And the next thing I'm going to do is I was going to disconnect the wiring, and I could do that, but I think what I'm going to do now is wait on that until I can drop this column down some and get some more some space there so I can see exactly what needs to be unplugged. So the first thing I'm going to do is down here at the bottom of this column, you've got 3 bolts that connect it. I believe there's just 3. I think. Let me see. Make sure here. I believe there's only 3. 3 bolts that hold this thing down to the floor pan down there. There's one up there at the top right that you're seeing there, and then there's another one kind of right there, and there's a third one that's down. I really can't. I don't want to mess my thing up there, but take my word for it, the third one is kind of down there at the 6 o'clock position, and when I pulled that floor covering back, I found the bolt that goes in there loose inside the car, and it's evidently been there quite a while as it's got insulation stuck to it. So I don't think I did that. I don't think I've been under here doing anything like that. So it's a mystery. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to knock those out and get those out, and then what we'll work on after that, you've got, let's see, I'm going to have to recall how this works here. I know you've got, let's see, one here, you've got a stud here and you've got a stud here. This one only has one nut on it, and then this one over here it's got a nut at the bottom against that plastic, and then you've got a ground which goes between here and the column, and then you've got another nut that holds that thing down. So we'll take that loose and see where that gets us. So I will see you there in that step. Alrighty then, I thought I'd show you where these three fasteners are that actually hold this column up into the car. To the best of my recollection, it feels like it has definitely come loose now. So your first, like I said, you got that nut, those two nuts there. I've left one of them, put it back in just to kind of hold this thing up. And you had the other one that was right here to the right side of it. And then back under here, I've already actually removed, I'll show it to you. You've got a bolt that goes up, kind of a smaller size bolt, and it's kind of located up under here. So you got to take that out. So I believe that's all three of them. So this thing, I'll set you up here, and I believe if I don't knock the camera over, process, I'll push up on this column, and now we should have a lot more give room, call it. Let's see, part of this dash is trying to interfere. Okay, so it's dropped. Hopefully not too much carnage. If you end up breaking one of these white little plastic spacers, you can get these aftermarket. You can get another new ones to replace it or whatever. But I'm just gonna go ahead and take those out and put them over there so that I don't risk. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that noise was. I mean, I kind of knew what it was, I just hadn't seen this yet. But somebody has put a helper spring on this clutch pedal. So that's that noise you hear when I was driving this car. Every time I push the clutch in, that whirring. And this thing actually has a spring on that. It's an external spring that's down on the bottom down there to bring the clutch back. So I don't know what the deal was with this thing, but I've got to remove that because it's holding the column in. Ding dong. You remember, if you look back on this, I always like kind of relating things that you would hear in other videos or see in other videos, going back to those type of things when I can. If you ever watch the video, Uncle Phil drives a 303 Plymouth, I think, or 303 Valiant, whatever I call that video. If you watch that video, when he gets in and he's sitting here letting it warm up, or he's driving it or something like that, anyway, somewhere along the way you'll hear this noise and that boinging noise, and Uncle Phil's impressed by that. He likes that. I don't know why, but maybe I'll give him the spring. Oh, I bet I can pull that off. Wait a bit. Oh, I bet you're too weak to do that. Well, it's just kind of, that's pretty inventive the way they did that. They looked like they took a piece of wire and wrapped it around the column brace, and then they hooked the spring to that and then hooked it to the clutch pedal down there. This car came from Pennsylvania, so that must mean there's rednecks in Pennsylvania too. See you guys. Well, disconnecting this wiring turned out to be kind of anticlimactic. Did I say climatic or climatic? I think I said climatic. I meant to say climatic, anticlimactic. So as far as I can see under here, I haven't had one of those columns out in ages. You've got two big plugs here. You've got a white one and a blue one, which connect to, coincidentally, a white one and a blue one on the column. And then this column also has a third one, a small one, which may do something else, but this car didn't use that. It wasn't plugged in. So that should be it, because this thing only has the ignition switch and turn signal switch and the horn up on the hazard switch too, but I think that's part of the turn signal switch, but this should be it. So it's loose in here and out there, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that coupler all the way off as best I can. I may have to get in there and yank on this thing. You have to do that sometimes, but just gotta be careful with this, you know, just don't go too fast with it, and make sure you've got stuff disconnected. But as far as my recollection serves me, that's it. I was looking on the one inside in the house, and this is it on this thing, because your shift on these is like any kind of automatic column shifter. The levers are outside, so that's outside in the engine compartment, so you don't have to worry about any kind of stuff in here. So I'm going to work along on this, but this thing should come on out here any time now. Here you go, you drive. Take the wheel, it's all yours. Alright, well, that was not too terrible of a job to do. Here's what we got on the inside. And that rusty space around there, that kind of residue, that's where a foam seal goes, and I may have to order one of those to replace that if I don't have a good one. You can see the end of the steering box out there where we were working on that coupler. And the only thing I had to end up doing that was unplanned was I had to end up taking that gas pedal loose. And it's not hard to do. You don't undo it from in here. It's got two studs that poke through. One, you can see the ends of them up there. That's the one right there at the top, and then the one right over there. And they just use a 7/16 nut that holds those in like that. So you take those out, and you can pull that pedal away a little bit and get it out of the way, because otherwise the steering column bracket floor plate wants to intrude. So I realize now what I forgot to get from Mopar Tony today while I was up there, and that was my automatic pedal cluster, because this one needs to come out, which it doesn't. Yeah, there's the spring I was telling you about right there. See that big coil spring? That's the clutch spring. So I don't know what the deal was. She wanted another return spring on this, because these are designed that it's got that spring is actually, now that I think about that, I may be telling that incorrectly, because I'm thinking that is a spring that works in a different direction, because these cars have, let me think about that for a minute. These cars have a kind of a counterbalanced clutch pedal, which means that when you push the clutch down, you have resistance to about right here. And then I'm going to poke this in my finger, and you'll watch what happens. It's like a mouse trap nearly. But the reason that's like that is because that's so you can have a heavier duty clutch, a good heavy duty clutch that will hold up. But people like these little old ladies that own this car, when they're driving this car and trying to push the clutch pedal, they're not saying, oh, it's too stiff, I can't push that clutch pedal. So that's to help push the clutch in. It's a real neat idea, I think. So there we go. That's a pretty, oh boy. Yeah, had a little carnage right there, kind of bent that. Didn't mean to do that. I'll have to fix that, but otherwise. And there's no wiring changes that I know of in the car. they'll have to be made. I'm going to double check that. The only thing is this has a clutch switch, but yeah, it's got a clutch pedal switched like newer cars. And I'm not exactly sure where that's at in here, but it's in here somewhere, because it won't let the engine start with the clutch pedal not pushed down. So I'm probably going to need to find that. And I think originally what they did is they made a jumper for it, and so that may be what I do. I remember you guys never were around for that part of the things I used to do, but I used to be in Mustangs, 5.0 Mustangs, real big, and I converted at least one of them from an automatic to a manual, kind of going the opposite way of this one. So it's just a lot of work, but it's not anything that's not doable for the average mechanic. So okay then, I guess I'll spend the next few days working on that column. Hopefully I can get it done in a couple of days, and I hope that guy, my buddy, was right about that. He said, see, here's the deal. Let me go outside and I'll explain it to you better out there. But Mopar Tony. The deal is that these columns are different lengths between a manual steering car and a power steering car. So this is a manual steering car. Obviously there's no power steering pump, no power steering lines. And the column I have in the house in there to use in this, which is an automatic transmission column, this is not one. I've just said that several times, but because that's where your gear shift rods connect down there. It's a different length because for whatever reason, Mopar, I guess for just space considerations, decided to place the power steering box up closer to the firewall, so that column as it sits is longer than the one that I have to put in there. So I'll work on that, and I'll share that with you when I find out exactly how that's going to work. But I hope you guys are enjoying these videos and stuff. I'm always enjoying making them. I haven't heard, I guess because of being summer and holidays and stuff, seems like I haven't heard much from people lately. So hope everybody's doing good, and we'll continue to fight the good fight. I noticed something right there. I'm kind of, like I said, it's been a long time since I've fooled one of these steering columns in here, and I noticed when I'm looking at this that I was telling you about those white spacers. If you kind of look at that, you can tell the way that's supposed to work is you can just slide those on. That's a space right there, and then you put it right there and then go with it. So that's how you get those replaced if you need it. Anyway, I'm going to clean up a little bit and go clean up some in the garage and stuff. And I've been driving that Volvo around, giving it its road trials, and so far it's doing pretty good. I put a catch can system on it for the turbo. Well, it's not really anything to do with the turbo, but it's a catch can, and you all know what a catch can is. I built one and put on it, and so I think that has licked the smoking problem. I don't think that car has a bad turbo at all. I think all that was I think the engine in that car is just a little bit loose. I think it's got a little bit too much blow by because it's been collecting some oil up there more than it should. But it runs good. It's got some idle issues that I've worked on. You've seen some of that, and I still haven't resolved that. So I'm not going to obsess with that right now. I'm just going to concentrate putting miles on it, and it's got some other things to be fixed too. It's got to have another corner light put in it. It needs to have two tail lights assemblies put in it because they're eroding and looking pretty rough. And I think it needs a fan clutch. But one of the things I'm going to do soon on that car is I'm going to put a actual temperature gauge in and put a boost gauge in that's actually got numbers on it, because I know it's not making a lot of boost. I think that's a real small turbo. I think that's a 13B. So that's a small turbo. That's like a hairdryer size turbo, but it does build boost. I mean, it does run when you get in it. So So that's good, but I want to kind of see what it's doing. And those gauges, they're like sob gauges. I don't know what the Swedish have against putting numbers on gauges. I guess I don't know. I'm not going to get into a big sermon on that, but I think it seems to me like that those car manufacturers, they kind of, I don't, how do you say this? It's like when they design stuff like that, they felt like, well, you should be smart enough to know what those gauges are saying to you, you know. If it's all the way to the right, it's too hot. If it's all the way to the left, it's too cold. And anything else, don't worry about it. So we know what we're doing. Well, I like to know more specifics than that, so we'll get into that. I've got a lot of videos I've made that I'm still trying to catch up on videos. This is Labor Day, and I don't know when you guys will actually see this video, but I'm working on it. So, alrighty then. Well, we will commence to putting the column together for this and putting it back in, and then when I do that, I've got all my new linkage to put back in, which Mopar Tony got me, and I got to do some connection to the lines down there for the transmission cooler, and we'll put this thing down on the ground and fill it with fluid and see if it works. I sure hope it does after watching what Musty Ones went through. It is. So thanks guys, have a good one. Later.